Hey, welcome back, class. This is week one's video of the brand new 9 weeks. Congratulations to everybody. You finished the first 9 weeks and everyone did fantastic. I know it was difficult in the very beginning of the school year, but you all stepped up to the challenge. You tried your hardest and you are getting those assignments in as quick as you possibly can. So now that it's a brand new 9 weeks, please do not start off on the wrong foot. Make sure you are turning in your weekly assignments. Now that you know how Schoology works and you're accustomed to the school year, I should see everybody on top of it and continuing to do great work as we move forward in the second 9 weeks. So just to go over what your assignments are for this week, 2-4 practice problems is the only thing that's going to be graded. It is 10 problems or so, and we'll go over that at the end of this video. And then you'll also see something called Dino DigSite. I love to use this every year because it gives you practice on how to plot points on a coordinate plane. And you might be wondering, what in the world did you just say? Well, I'll show you. That's what today's lesson on is graphing and plotting points on a grid. Okay, so let's just dive into it and start with a warm-up. Okay, so you see here I have 3 problems for you to try. Now the first one, which is this one over here, says what's -3 plus 1 the absolute value? So what it wants you to do is to solve what's inside the absolute value bars first and then take the absolute value. The second one over here says what's the absolute value of -10 minus the absolute value of 8? So same thing, take the absolute values and then do the operation symbol. Now down below I gave you a problem that looked like one of the problems from last week's assignment. And the reason I want to throw this in is because a lot of us had issues with it. But it isn't difficult if you take it one step at a time. Remember, when you see absolute value bars, find the absolute value, which means find the distance of that number from 0. So for the problem down below, I want you all to order the numbers from least to greatest. Take the absolute value first, see what your answers are, then put them in order from least to greatest. So take a minute, pause the video, see if you can answer these 3 problems on your own first, and then we'll go over them together. Okay, so let's check out this first one. We need to find the absolute value of -3 plus 1. If you remember what we were working on last week, when you're using a number line, let's say let's say zeros here, 1, -1, -2, -3. What you want to do is you want to look at the number line. If it's -3 and I'm adding 1, that means I'm moving 1 space to the right. So 1 space to the right. Well, what am I at? I'm at -2. So if my answer is -2, what's the absolute value of -2? How far is -2 from 0? 2 spaces. So that's your answer. Let's try this one. We need to find the absolute value of -10 and subtract the absolute value of 8. So the absolute value of -10 would be 10 because -10 is 10 spaces from 0 minus what's the absolute value of 8? 8. Now everybody should get this one right. What's 10 minus 8? 2. So the answer for both of these is 2. All right, let's try this one. Again, what you need to do first is find the absolute value of each one of these numbers. The absolute value of -12 is 12. Let's choose a darker color. It's 12. The absolute value of 1.5 or 1.5 is still just 1.5. Everything inside the absolute value bars turns positive because distance is positive. So the absolute value of -30 is 30. And the absolute value of a 6 is just 6. Now you can look at these numbers and see which one is the least, then next, and then greatest. So the smallest number I have here is this 1.5. So that's my least number. So I would write down the absolute value of 1.5 is the least. Okay, well, what's my next least number now that this one's gone? 6. So the absolute value of 6 would be written next. Sorry, that kind of looks like 16. The absolute value of 6 is next. So that one's gone. Now, all that's left is this 12 and this 30. So the next least number would be 12. So I would write down the absolute value of negative 12, which means the greatest value here would be this 30. So my answer is negative 30. Now, I know a lot of you had issues with the assignment last week because you were looking at just these top numbers and you were putting those in order from least to greatest. And that's not the case. What it's doing is it's asking you what is the absolute value of these numbers and then put them in order from least to greatest. Whenever you see absolute value bars, you have to take the absolute value of that integer or that number. Okay? So the correct answer here would be absolute value of 1.5, and absolute value of 6, absolute value of negative 12, absolute value of negative 30. And that's your answer. All right, so let's hop into today's lesson. Let's see a little bit about coordinate planes, and then I'll show you what your assignments are for this week. Okay, so you keep hearing me say this word, coordinate plane. And all it's saying, and all that is that it's a grid. It's a grid line. It's basically how we graph. If you've ever looked at a map, we use it in mapping. It's a good way to show where points are on a line. If you've ever looked, maybe over when we were quarantining the very beginning, you may have seen the trend lines of the coronavirus going up and down and positive, negative, this. Okay, we use the integers we've been practicing all the time, and we can plot them on a coordinate plane. And really what a coordinate plane is just a one number line going up and down and one number line going left to right. And they just intersect one another, right? Because if you look over here, here's a number line that we were working with last week. Here's a number line going left to right, and here's a number line going up and down. They just intersect, so they crisscross one another, and that makes a coordinate plane. So some things I want you to look at. We classify the different regions, the different parts of a coordinate plane into quadrants. So quad means 4, quadrants is what each one of these little squares are called. Now quadrant 1 always have, if you look at the number lines, always have positive numbers, right? We have positive 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 1, 2, 3, 4. You may remember working with these last year and in 4th grade as well. You have an x-axis and a y-axis, but always, oops, let me fix that. Always in quadrant 1, your ordered pair is going to be positive numbers. And an ordered pair, like last year, you probably would plot points on a coordinate plane. An ordered pair always has x and y numbers. Okay, and we'll look at that today. But in quadrant 1, you always have positive numbers. This quadrant over here is quadrant 2. The x value numbers, right? These numbers right here are all negative. And the y value are all positives. So in quadrant 2, you have negatives and positives. In quadrant 3, down here, your x values are still negative, but your y values are also negative. So quadrant 3 is the opposite of quadrant 1, because positive, positive, negative, negative. And if you look at quadrant 4, your x values will always be positive, and your y values will always be negative. And if you look, quadrant 2 and quadrant 4 are opposites. All right. So in the very middle of our coordinate plane, in the very middle of it, where the two number lines intersect, so they crisscross, it's called the origin. So maybe if you are a DC or Marvel fan, a lot of the very first movies of a character are called the origin stories. And that's because those are the stories about that character from the beginning. So the reason that this point right here is called the origin is because you always start in the origin. It's where the two lines intersect, it's where they meet, it's where you begin plotting points. Okay? So the 5 things I want you to remember from this is that we break up coordinate planes into quadrants, and there's quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes counterclockwise. And then the middle of your coordinate plane is called the origin, which is ordered pair 0, 0, because you're not moving anywhere from left to right. So 0, x is 0, and y is 0, because you're not moving anywhere left or right or up or down. Okay? So let's plot some points, and hopefully this will make a little bit more sense for us. Well, I guess before we do plot points, I want to show you, a lot of you have told me that you like to play video games. So do I. One thing to think about, if you've ever played a game like Fortnite, if you've ever done Warzone on Call of Duty, technically Grand Theft Auto, which all of you are too young for, but I hear some of you play it anyways. A lot of those games, the maps that are shown in it are broken up into coordinate planes, right? Because over here is Fortnite. I don't know what season this is from, but if you look on the left, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then up top you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So it's not exactly what we're using today because we're using only numbers, not letters. But this is a coordinate plane. It is a grid line so that you know, let's say you want to drop in Weeping Woods down here, right? If you want to drop in Weeping Woods with your buddies, you'd say, hey, let's drop in Weeping Woods. And you'd plot a point on this grid line, and then you all drop at this location, which is C 5.5, because it's in between 5 and 6. So you drop here, which is at C 5.5. Same thing in Warzone, right? If you're talking to your buddies that you want to drop in, let's say, the stadium, you just put a point right here. Well, where are you guys dropping at? G and 5.5, right? So you use coordinate planes all the time. You guys, if my in-person kids have probably seen my background of my computer is Sea of Thieves. The chart of that, so the map of that game is also a coordinate plane. It's a graph, it's a grid line, because that's the easiest way for you to show locations on maps. It's the easiest way for you to share your locations. And we use it in the real world too. Because if you have a GPS system, which all of you, if you have a cell phone, um, or if your parents have used a GPS to go somewhere, what it does is that it's tracking your location. And the reason it knows your location is because of a coordinate system. We use coordinates all the time. We use coordinates to find where you are or to show where a location is in the world. Everywhere has a specific coordinate location. All right, so that's what we're working with on a much smaller scale, but we're looking at coordinates and where they fall on a grid line or a graph. Okay, so let's look at this coordinate plane. What you're going to be asked to do for this week is I want you to be able to look at a coordinate plane, see where points are plotted on it, and tell me what the ordered pair is. And I want you to be able to plot your own points on a coordinate plane to show me that you know where they go. Okay, so again, when we're putting points on a coordinate plane, there's something that you need to be paying attention to. There's the x-axis, which goes left to right. The negative numbers, just like on a number line, go to the left. The positive numbers go to the right. And then there's a y-axis that goes up and down. The positive numbers go up, just like when we were talking about altitude. When you're going up, they're positive. When you're going below C, they're negative, right? So positive, right and up, negative, left and down. You're going to be given things called ordered pairs. And what they are, they look like this. It's where you have parentheses, one number here, and a second number here. When you're looking at an ordered pair, the first number is always your x. It's the one that you're going to look on the x-axis for. And the second number is always your y. It's the number that you're going to be looking on the y-axis, which goes up and down. So let's try plotting Q. Point Q says that its ordered pair is 2, -3. So you always start at the origin, and if it's 2, you need to move 2 spaces to the positive to the right, which is 1, 2. So here's x value of 2. Then it says -3. Don't move from this spot right here, and you need to move to where -3 is on the y-axis. Well, our negative numbers are down below. So that means I need to move 3 spaces below from the spot that I'm at right now, which is right here. So 1, 2, 3. So I would put a big old dot, and this is point Q. Okay, what we did is we started at the origin. We went to the x value first, which was a +2. We went once, twice to 2, and then down to 3 on the y-axis. 1, 2, 3. And we just put a dot and we said it's Q. Let's do R. So for R, my x value is -1. My y value is 1, +1. Again, start at the origin, smack dab in the middle. X value is -1. Well, on a number line, where are my negative numbers? To the left. So here's -1 on my x-axis. And then it says my y value is a +1. So looking up and down, my positive numbers are up. So from this spot right here, I go up 1. And then I put a big old dot. And I say this point is R. Because it's -1, 1. You start with the first number, which is your x value, -1. And then I went up 1 because my positive numbers are straight up. And I put a point. Let's try this last one. S, and it says 0, 2. Now these look a little bit tricky, but they're not too bad if you read it correct. So still, this first number, even though it's 0, is my x value. And the second number is still my y value. You start at the origin, smack dab in the middle. If my x value is 0, well, where's 0 on a number line? It's in the middle. So I don't go anywhere either to the left or to the right. I stay in the middle. So I leave my cursor right here. Now it says 2, which is a +2. My y values are positive up. So that means I need to move 2 spaces up. So I go up 1, 2, and I put a dot. So this is the ordered pair 0, 2, because you didn't go anywhere left or right. There was no x value. There was only a y value of +2. So this is point S. And that's it. That's what we're going to be working with. Plotting points and then looking at a coordinate plane and being able to tell what the ordered pair is from it. All right, so let's try another example. Okay, so let's say you and your buddies were playing a game where you're dropping in on this map to the right. It says a grid map of Washington, D.C. is shown to the right. If we were dropping on D.C., what are the coordinates of the Jefferson Memorial? So we need to look at this map and figure out where the Jefferson Memorial is. You'll see you have the White House, the ellipse, the Lincoln Memorial, and way down here you'll see a red dot and it says Jefferson Memorial. So when you are looking at an already plotted coordinate plane, just look for the dots, and then they're almost always labeled. So every single one of these dots is labeled with what they are. So here's the Jefferson Memorial, right here. let me make it red, just like the way it was. Right here's the Jefferson Memorial. And we need to figure out the ordered pair. And remember, the ordered pair is always written in parentheses. The first number is your X. The second number is your Y. So if this is the Jefferson Memorial, we need to figure out what is the X value by looking at my coordinate plane. Now, remember, we are working with numbers that are whole numbers, regular integers, like 1, 2, 3, 4. But sometimes you're going to be working with numbers that are in between. So in between 0 and 1 is a fraction of a whole bunch of numbers. There's halves and fourths and sixths and so on. So let's look at this coordinate plane right here. Let's look at the x-axis. If this is the origin right in the middle, and right here is 1, there's a line here, and a line here, and a line here. So if this is 1 and this is 0, well, right here would be halfway, right? So our x value, since it's halfway between 0 and 1, is just 0.5, or I'm just going to write as a fraction, which is a half. And then we need to figure out the y value, which means I go from this point all the way down here to the Jefferson Memorial. Well, let's figure out where it is on the y-axis. It's right about there. Well, if it goes, again, 0 and 1's right here, -1, there's a space, a space, a space. So it's broken off into fourths, because 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, which makes 1. So if this is -1, that means that this would be -1 and 1/4. This would be -1 and 1/2. And then the Jefferson Memorial will be at -1 and 3/4. So -1 and 3/4. And there's our answer. So before we leave this, let's look at another one and just see if we can figure it out. So let's look at something like the FBI building, which is right here. The FBI building, if we wanted to find what is the ordered pair for, the x value means when you start at the origin, how far to the right is it? Well, here's 1 and here's 2. So the x value of the FBI building would be 2. And then to find the y value, we need to figure out how far up does it go on our coordinate plane. Well, it goes right about here. And the same thing we were saying before, if this is 1 right here, well, in between 0 and 1 is a bunch of fractions, but this grid line is broken up into fourths. So if this is 0, this would be 1/4, 2/4, which is a half, 3/4, and then 4/4, which is just 1. So the FBI building is a fourth of the way up on the y-axis. So its ordered pair would be 2 and 1/4. Now, on the practice problems, I'm only going to give you just halves. I'm only going to have you working with halfway between numbers. But just know that you can have an ordered pair that has a fraction as the x or y. Okay? Those are all perfectly fine rational numbers. All right, so we're almost done. This is the last example. So we want to plot these points right here where it says A is -3, 2, and then B is 3, 2. So not too bad. They're about the same. They're close. So let's plot A first. My x value is -3. My y value is 2. So always start in the origin. So I start right here. -3. On a number line, your negatives are to the left. Things are reversed for me. So to the left. So I need to move 3 spaces to the left. Once, twice, 3 times. So I'm at x negative 3. Now I need to move up or down depending on my number and the y-axis. So my y value, if you look, my y value down there says 2. My positive numbers on the y-axis are up. So I need to move 2 spaces up from this point right here. So 1, 2. So I put my dot where it belongs and I label it A. And I'm done. And then let's try B. B says positive 3, positive 2. So start in our origin, move 3 spaces to the right because that's where my positives are. 1, 2, 3. And then I move 2 spaces up. 1, 2. So this would be the ordered pair 3, 2, which is B. What do you notice about these two? Hopefully you see if I were to take my coordinate plane and fold it in half, they're the exact reflection of one another. Okay? And just to give you a little sneak peek, because we're going to be working with this next week as well, reflections are exactly what it sounds like. You're used to hearing the word reflection. It's as if you've looked in a mirror and you see the exact reflection, I don't know what other word to use, the exact image of yourself just reflected. Like, for example, on this camera, right now I'm holding up my left hand, but on the camera, it shows you that I'm holding up it looks like my right hand, right? And then the same thing. This is my right hand, but on the camera, it's my left hand. So I'm a reflection image of myself. I'm still me, but there's something different about me, right? So if I wanted to reflect this first point, which is point A, which is negative 3, positive 2, the tip is your x stays the same, and then your y is the opposite. So if x stays the same would be negative 3. What is the opposite of a positive 2? Negative 2. So my new ordered pair, if I were reflecting this over the x-axis, which is this blue line, would be negative 3, negative 2. We'll call this A2 because it's the second version of A. Because A being reflected over the x-axis would be negative 3, negative 2. This is a reflection. It's as if I were to fold the x-axis in half, right? They would be touching. If I were reflecting over the y-axis, the x is opposite and the y is the same. So if you look, A and B are a reflection over the y-axis because their x values are opposite. So the opposite of a negative 3 is a positive 3, and the y values stayed the same. They're both positive 2. So that's why A and B are reflections. They're just a reflection over the y-axis. It's as if I folded them in half this way. Okay? So we'll work with that a little bit more next week. I just wanted to show you and give you a little sneak peek. The biggest thing I want you to take away from this week's lesson is just, do you know how to plot points, and then do you know how to read a graph to figure out the points, the ordered pair? Okay, so let's look at the assignments that are inside Schoology for this week. So you'll see that the folder for this week is called Week 1, and please don't get confused. The reason it's called Week 1, but I have November 9th to the 13th. This is the first week of the second 9 weeks. All right, inside the old assignments folder, I'm just going to put all of the first 9 weeks into a folder inside the old assignments folder called First 9 Weeks. Okay, so we'll be starting fresh with this 9-week stuff. So for week 1, of course, here's the video once I upload it. And then the only graded assignment is this 2-4 practice problems. Before you do this, though, I'd like for you to practice plotting points and reading a graph by clicking this that says Dino Dig Site. When you click this link, it'll take you here. All right, I'll read the directions to you. It says, find the 3 missing bones from the dinosaur skeleton using your Digbots. Each bone is 3 units long, so it's 3 points long. To dig the bones, tap on the position of the area you want to dig on the coordinate grid. Then enter the corresponding coordinates, so the ordered pair, in the input field on the left. Use the comma to separate the x and the y in your coordinates. Press dig. Incorrect coordinates will use a dig bot. If the coordinates match the dig site, your bot will go to the dig site and your dot will change color. A brown dot indicates that no bone was found in the area. A green dot shows that part of a bone was found. If you want, you can use the hint button to help you find the bones. Each hint will cost you a dig bot. So I know that's a lot of directions, but let me show you. So here's a coordinate plane, right? And here's your little dig bot. What it wants you to do is to click somewhere on this coordinate grid. It's kind of like if you've ever played Battleship. Click somewhere in here to try and find where the bones are located. So I'll click right here. So there's a red dot now plotted. What it wants you to do is over here where it says dig coordinates, you need to tell the dig bot where is this point on the coordinate plane. My x value, so if I start at the origin, my x value is 1, 2, 3. So I write 3, comma, don't forget the comma, and then what's my y value? How far up did I go? 1, 2. So I type 2. And then when I'm ready, I say dig. So this is the brown color. That means I didn't find anything. And if you look, one of my dig bots that I can use is gone. And I only have, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 24 left. So I need to be very careful where I'm planning on digging. So let's try some more. I'm going to delete that. Let's click 0, 0, which is your origin. 0, 0. And I say dig bot. Nothing again. So I know there's no bone here. I know there's no bone there. And you're just going to keep going until hopefully you find all of the bones. So -5, 1, because my x value went to the left 5 times and I went up 1. So up here I say -5, comma 1. Dig. Still nothing. Geez. All right, well, let's try -5. So I'll stay here. Let's go here, -5, 3. So I erase the 1, I type 3, dig. Still nothing. So it can be pretty challenging. If you are confused, like, well, where could it be? There is a hint, and you can choose hint, but it takes away one of these dig bots. But we'll do it anyways. Bone located at coordinate x -3. So it's saying that somewhere we have to put in a number for our x, but for sure in the -3 area, there is a bone in the y value. So x comma -3. So -3 on the y value would be here. So somewhere on this line is a bone. Let's try -2, -3. So I type -2, comma -3. Dig. That's not it. So I'm just gonna call it quits. But you keep trying. We'll see if you can find all 3 bones. But I don't want to make this video too long. So you'd keep going until you hopefully find all 3 bones. That assignment is not graded. I just want you to try it out, get some practice doing coordinate planes, plotting points, reading a graph, and hopefully having a little bit of fun with it. So again, not graded. The only thing that is graded is this 2-4 practice problems. Now let's go through it real quick just so that you know what you're doing and hopefully you get the right answers. Click Start New Attempt, and this is what your assignment's going to look like for almost all of them. So it should say, what location in the coordinate plane is point A? So here's point A, and it says it's 4, 6. So it says, what location is this point in? Is it quadrant 1, 2, 3, or the origin? So you need to figure out point A is in what location? Question 2 is going to say, what location is point B? So where is that? Number 3 says, how about point C? What location is that one in? Same thing, choose your answer. So this one's a little bit different. It says, what is the ordered pair for point A? So here's point A. What is the ordered pair for it? So it's right here. What is the ordered pair for it? And you would choose the correct ordered pair. Same thing with 5. Tell me what B is. Now, if you look, this is what I mean by there's a fraction involved. If this is 8 and this is 9, what is B? You're going to tell me point C. Number 7 is asking what's point D. Number 8. So there's no numbers on this coordinate plane, but if you look carefully, it says, what is the ordered pair of the treasure chest? Well, here's the treasure chest. What's the X value? Start at the origin. How far to the right is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then how far up is it? Just count. When you do that, click the correct answer. Number 9, what is the ordered pair of the fruit barrel? This might not be fruit, but it looked like fruit to me. But this is what I'm talking about. What is the ordered pair of this location? And judge it off of this black dot right there. That's what it wants you to measure from. Now the last one's a little bit different. Try this out. It's my first time using it. Hopefully it does work. But it says plot the following point on the coordinate plane. Your X value is 3. Your Y value is negative 2.5 or negative 2.5. What you do is you can choose your color, but you click somewhere on this map of where you think this ordered pair is. So it's kind of like the dino dig, right? You're going to put a point somewhere on this coordinate plane of where you think 3, negative 2.5 is. If you're on a tablet or if you're a computer, all you really do is you just tap where you think it goes. I know it has this whole draw function, but I only want to see just a small dot. So you can clear. If you didn't do it right, you can just hit clear or undo. Let's say you thought it was smack dab in the middle, which hint, 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 it's not. But you would just put a dot in the middle, and when you feel good that that's where the answer is, you just submit and save review and finish. So that's all I have for you for this week, class. As always, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to message me right here. Okay, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. It's a good way for me to be able to get you back on track or to hopefully clear up anything you're confused on. I don't know if you are lost on an assignment if you don't tell me that you are. I'm always happy to help, no matter the time, day or night. I'll just might message you back in the morning. I'm not on that late. So if you do need help, please reach out. But let's start this 9 weeks off on the right foot. Make sure you're turning in all of your work that you possibly can for all of your classes. Start strong. So keep up the great work. And as always, I will see you all in the next video.